Hey crafty friends, Jeannie back here today to share two watercolored backgrounds in celebration of the three new Atelier inks from Ink on 3. We have Sharktooth White, Sweet Petunia Pink, and Trinity Teal along with their re-inkers. For my first watercolor panel, I use a flat brush and add water over the entire piece of Canson XL watercolor paper. I want to do a loose galaxy looking panel using the two new colors. I'll be focusing on using the re-inkers for today's projects, and I'll be adding a small drop of Trinity Teal and Sweet Petunia Pink to my glass mat. I pick up the teal and add it to the panel in a very loose, carefree kind of way. I want some areas to be completely teal and some areas completely pink, and anywhere they mix, they'll form this pretty purple color. And of course with watercolors, the colors always look a little bit lighter than what it really is, and that is why once I'm happy with this layer, I'll go ahead and heat set it, and then I'll add a second layer of color. So I went in with the flat brush again, covered up the entire panel with water, and I'm going to go and repeat the steps. Once I repeat the steps, I will go ahead and heat set it again, and then I'll pull out the third new color, which is the Sharktooth White. The reason why I'm doing a galaxy background is because I want to use the Sharktooth White as splatter. So I'm always on the hunt for a good pigmented white ink that I can use as splatter, because I really love doing galaxy looking backgrounds or just splatter for general backgrounds because it adds a nice effect to it. I put a drop of the Sharktooth White on my glass mat, mix it with a little bit of water, and using an acrylic block and a thin brush, I'm just gonna splatter it all over the panel. And although this looks a little crazy, it'll all come together later when I finish off the card. So I really liked how that turned out, but I'm gonna move on to my second panel, and I'm starting out with the Trinity Teal and the Sweet Petunia Pink as well. And I'm going to be using a flat brush directly on my Canson XL watercolor piece of paper. And I don't add water to the panel at all. I just add it to the brush and pick up the color, and I'm just brushing it across the panel. I just wanted to start with the Trinity and then transition to the pink, and I love how these two colors mix well together and create that really light purple. So with my first panel, after my first layer, I will go in and heat set it. Once I heat set it, I'm going to add more color because it always dries back to a lighter color. So I'm going to go in with that second layer, and it gets to the vibrancy that I like. So sometimes you just have to keep the heat setting it, or if you have the patience, wait for it to dry and then add a second layer or a third layer even. It just depends on how bright you want it. But I thought that after 2 layers, the color looked really good to me and I liked where it was, so I just left it as is. I didn't show it on camera, but I do go in with the Sharktooth White and just create the same splatter effect that I did with the first panel. I'm using the BeYoutiful stamp set for both cards today. I'll be using that large sketchy floral with the leaves. I wanted to create a layered effect of the images, so I'll actually be layering acetate on top of vellum. So first I am stamping these images using juicy ink on vellum and heat embossing them using Artic White embossing powder. And for the second layer, which is the acetate piece, I'll be using chrome embossing powder, which is a silvery color. So I also wanted to mention that the design team will be featuring projects all week long using the 3 new Atelier inks and giving away a gift card to the shop. So you can stop by, leave a comment for a chance to win. And then on Friday, we'll be also having an Instagram hop where we'll be giving away 3 $25 gift cards as well. So I'll leave all that information down below in case you're interested and wanted to see the different projects that we create using these inks. This is the acetate piece, and for stamping a watermark ink on acetate, you have to be really careful about lifting it because it kind of drags the ink on the acetate. So you always want to stamp and directly pull up as quick as possible so it doesn't drag the ink on it. And here for my silver piece, it kind of did squish it a little bit and drag it, but it's okay. I'm going to be trimming it down a little bit so you can't really tell, especially since they're sketchy already. So for the vellum, I don't like it when adhesive shows behind the vellum. So I took a piece of Stick It adhesive, which is kind of double-sided adhesive that you can add for die cuts and things like that. But here I'm just going to go ahead and place my vellum pieces directly on the Stick It adhesive once I remove the top release panel, and then I am going to go ahead and varnish it down. So that means the adhesive is on the back of that vellum piece and you won't be able to see like where the adhesive begins or ends. So for the acetate piece, I used that chrome embossing powder and the stamen in the middle kind of got lost. There is a stamen stamp in this stamp set that allows me to stamp just the stamen alone. So I went ahead and I stamped it using Juicy ink, and I'm adding the Black as Night embossing powder, so that adds the detail to the stamen, and I really like how that effect looks, and it really pops out on the flower, as you can see it when the acetate is layered on top of the vellum. So I think that it turned out really cool. So for the leaves, I didn't add it to this stick adhesive because these were pretty small. I just pulled out my Xyron sticker maker and ran them through the little machine. And this little tool is super helpful for like smaller die cuts or anything like that because it just adds adhesive to the back of it. So for the vellum, I ran it through the Xyron sticker maker, but for the acetate, I didn't. Since it's hidden under the little floral, I just added a little glue dot at the edge of the leaf and tucked it behind the large floral. No one would be able to see that adhesive anyway. So for the vellum, I went ahead and removed the backing for the stick adhesive, and then I'm going to be gluing it directly down to the card panel. For the acetate piece, as acetate is completely see-through, I took a small piece of foam and hid it behind the stamen, and the area right behind the stamen is large enough that I could pop this up and add a bit of dimension to the floral. I kind of wanted to bend the acetate, but I have some pretty heavy-duty acetate, so it didn't bend really well, but I'm pretty sure that the foam tape will keep it nice and secure. So I did the same thing for the second watercolor panel, except I put it in the corner instead of the middle area. For this particular watercolor panel, I'm going to be stamping the sentiment directly on the watercolor paper using blackout ink. And this is a really dark black ink, but because I'm stamping on watercolor paper, which is textured, I had to stamp it a couple of times just to get a clear impression. For my second sentiment, I'm actually going to use Juicy ink on black cardstock because I will be heat embossing the sentiment using the same Artic White embossing powder that I used for the floral. So once I did that, I went ahead and trimmed out the sentiment because I wanted 3 different pieces to it: the hello, friend, and beautiful. And because beautiful is written in a scripty manner, I wanted to fussy cut a black outline around it, and I just went ahead and ran the sentiments through my Xyron sticker maker because I already had it out. So why not? You definitely could use glue if you wanted to, but since I already had it, I went ahead and used it. So I'll just be placing the sentiment directly onto the card, and I really like how these 2 cards turned out. I thought the galaxy background turned out really nice, even though it always looks like a hot mess when you first create it, and then once you put the card together, it looks really pretty and you don't really give it a second thought of how it looked when you originally created it. So once I finished adding the sentiments, I actually thought the left card panel looked a little plain, so I pulled out a couple of embellishments from Trinity stamps. They have a ton of embellishments in their store, and so I pulled out these 2 clear ones. The one on the left is a round embellishment, and then the one on the right hand side for the galaxy background is more of a jewel embellishment, and I thought that it really complemented the 2 panels. That's it for today's cards. I hope you enjoyed them, and I'll leave all the information you need down below for the blog hop and the Instagram hop, and I will see you guys next time for another video. Bye!